when you're a startup, you run this dynamic. You have this roadmap, and those two roadmaps are at odds with each other. And so to try to bring on, we're trying to bring on focus on that growth in all those areas. But then the product side is difficult. How do you bring on high quality people? And you don't know that they're not working on it until like 6 months down the line. And so we took this risk. We said, listen, our margins right now, we've got to do all the support work, but to release new features is we only got this much time. We, with Crossover, have probably released as much in the first quarter, if not more than we did in the entire last year in terms of new features. And that is not just because they're extra bodies, it's because they're very high quality bodies. And you guys have come as advertised, you focus on releasing things and getting stuff done. That priority of saying, we had our guys and they would experiment on their, for example, their hiring processes. I didn't realize it, but our head development, our head programmer, tuned out for 6 weeks as he was developing these hiring processes and making these tests and doing all these things. And in the end, he was tasked with bringing on one senior level programmer, and his process, after all that work, produced 4 programmers, all of them junior. And the one that we wanted to come on board said no to our application. Compare that to the lack of distraction. We employ Crossover. You guys have your very well, suited system. We bring on, Angelo and Samir and Douglas and Mohammed, and they were all fantastic right out of the get-go. They're a contained unit, and they immediately focus on getting deliverables as soon as possible. You guys have that, that guarantee. You're very interested in making sure that this isn't this endless ramp-up period. It's just an entirely different dynamic. And so I love that we have guys committed to us that are going to look after those, the grinding out and finding, doing the troubleshooting the problems. But Crossover brings the element where it gives us wings. It is the one that says, now we want to go after things, a roadmap that can enable our sales team to sell and our account teams to retain. It was impossible without Crossover. And that's due to not just added bodies, but how you guys work and the culture that comes with you.
Awesome. And you talked about this a little bit, but can you explain a little bit more about the nuance? You kind of separate it like it's the quality of the people and the way that they work. Can you talk about your perception of how the team works and why that's been good for you guys?
Yeah, one of the problems when you are growing a team is that there are certain cultural processes that get ingrained. There's certain mindsets that get ingrained. And so you grow this team, and now you're saying, I want to switch that up, but you can't just and you don't want to let go of your entire sale or your entire development team and then bring on new guys. It wouldn't even work or be healthy. But at the same time, as executive leadership can't be going in there and saying, okay, guys, I just want to hear you're going with your sprints, and you know what, I don't really like how you did that. They're like, that's micromanagement. Leave us alone. You don't know anything about development. And yet, at a high level scale, that mentality that says, listen, getting something done by a release date, as promised and when promised, is incredibly important. We're not just, yes, you are the expert on terms of development and maybe things that we don't see, but we need someone who can work along beside us, who cares as much about our timelines as we do. Because the sales team needs its sales goals, otherwise we could get investment money. Otherwise our books don't match. And when we talk with the culture that comes in with Crossover, it was very much like, we want to hit your goals for you. For example, reporting is a prime example. I've been at them I've tried 2 stabs at it. And we had our guy, and he's like, well, we're doing this reporting. Then he's like, I said, I want something. I want to give you context. In 7 days, I want something. I don't care if you just give me a web page. I don't need this reporting framework. I need something that I can show, this large customer. Yeah, I'll have it to you by the weekend. And then the weekend passes, then 2 weeks and 3 weeks. And then it's like, well, no, I wanted, it's turned out to be more complicated than I thought. And it just was moving nowhere. And again, I said, I don't care about the framework. I care about the end result. When I talk with Crossover, they're like, we hear you loud and clear. We'll get you something on this time frame, and we're going to do whatever we take with our expertise and knowledge to get you where you need to be. And they never lose the forest for the trees. They're very focused on it. They're very much a partner in growing that. So like I said, our own team has value, and I'm not trying to diminish them, but it's not the same as this partner that works with leadership and it says, we are going to get you to those ends. The separate is the issue of the quality of the people. It's hard when you've got all these responsibilities to say, let's evaluate how good our guys are. There's a suspicion that kind of, comes up like, am I going to get terminated? What do you know? How do you worry about creating processes that are going to bring on these high quality people? they quickly demonstrated with their insights, with their ability to accomplish their goals, the feedback that we got from our team, these are really high quality guys. And that was my biggest concern, is that I've worked with outsourced teams before, and they don't fit well with the team. They don't, there's this communication gap. You want to achieve something. That's not who you gave us. You gave someone who understands it, and then they fill in the blanks. The other thing is that executives, we don't give them polished requirements analysis, but we are clear on this is what matters to us. But this stuff, all the little intangibles, like, you probably are going to want to have this little bit over here. They just did exactly the right amount of additions or taken away while still hitting the deadlines. They offered maximal value while hitting the things that we cared about, which was these timing constraints and these big level features. Versus we're going to go play this thing in ways that I don't actually care about and that aren't going to help us organizationally.
Got it. And can you talk about the relationship with your software engineering manager, the guy who's kind of in charge of managing the team? How has that dynamic worked itself out?
It's worked really well. Tom has loved it because now he's actually empowered to hit deadlines. I mean, he was running into these obstacles, these cultural obstacles. If we had hired somebody, they are going to be ingrained. They're going to be introduced to our culture. You can't transform that because you guys are a self-contained unit. You have your QA systems, you have your guys, you have your ways that you measure everything. It can be its own culture. Without that, it doesn't bring its own identity. It would absorb too much into ours. So now we've got Tom, and Tom had said, listen, I need more guys to achieve these goals. But now he got not just new guys, but a new culture. And like I said, we probably need a bit of both. It's not like, it's our guys that are loyal and trying to figure out these problems that potentially I'm not prioritizing. It's helpful to have that. But it worked really well. Tom's like, oh man, this is fantastic. Like his ability to release now, he looks good. He appreciates it because it makes him look good. I'm hitting release dates. My pressure on him was always, your goal is to deliver as promised when promised. And these when promised stuff is just not happening, Tom. And quite frankly, the as promised isn't either. That's your reason why you're here. And so he's been trying, but he's running into obstacles. The addition of crossover means that now he looks good, and we are achieving that mantra, the whole goal of that development team, as promised when promised.
Got it. One of the things, Kent, that we run into a lot is when we're talking to prospects about crossover, the first thing that people think about is, whoa. I do my development in-house, right? I don't want an external team or an outsourcer working on my product. And we try and explain to people, and we're getting better at communicating that these are your guys. It's your team. So do you feel like the crossover team is your team, or do you feel that it is kind of like, how do you feel in relation to your core business and company? Is the crossover team a part of that, or are they a separate unit?
Yeah, no, it's very, I actually use the crossover model when we are looking to outsource other elements. So for example, we're outsourcing a call center, and one group had more of your model, and another group had a very different one. I was like, I'm going with a crossover model. That works really well. Because no, they're not, our team is first of all largely remote anyhow. We have a few people who work in office, but they're mostly remote. Integrating a crossover team into that remote setting, it doesn't, like I said, it's not, they're not their own, they're not a different team that we're hiring to get stuff done for us. They're 100% our guys. Angelo is our guy. Douglas is our guy. And we rave about them as part of what brings value to us as an organization. And maybe that doesn't look like it on the books, but that's certainly how it feels to the executive team over here. We're just like, we want to add more. Like right now we are growing in sales as a result of the work that we're doing. And so we are waiting for that cash flow to come in and another level of round of investment to come in. And then we're like, fantastic. Now when we hire, we're going to be hiring through crossover because it's painless. They hire our guys. They hire our team out. It's always the language is always ours. It's never them.
Cool. I'm glad to hear that. One question I have for you is about when we first engaged with you. I remember we had some emails back and forth. We connected you with some of our previous customers.
Yeah.
What other solutions were you looking at?
It's hard to remember. I was looking at, I'm not a big fan of outsourcing at all. So first of all, I was the biggest skeptic. But we just weren't having success hiring internally. And quite frankly, just the overhead of searching for them, now it was going to fall on us, given the failure that our own internal team had. So I was looking at recruiters. I was looking at other outsourced companies that had some kind of guarantees. Not because I cared about the money, but just because I cared about people that were that confident that they were going to put their financial concerns on the line.
Yeah.
Some of them were cheaper than you guys. But the important thing is that we get the right people on board. We don't. It's not saving a little bit of money on the budget line destroys your company if it's not getting your goals, and this is a difficult thing to get right. So recruiters, other companies, and potentially, like we had shaped. The reason why we actually turned to this kind of is because we'd already shaken our entire network. All of our programmers, people are really good. Our own, past experiences with other developers who'd worked really well. We had shaken all the trees, and there was nothing left. And so we're like, how the heck do we get premier people onto our team now? And so we took a risk. It was very much a risk in my mind, very much a risk.
Sure. And if you think back to that decision, given that it was such a risk, what do you think pushed you over the edge, or why did you make the risk?
Partly it was your description of your vetting processes that you have, these very large funnels you're going through. You keep a very small amount of them. That was important. Partly your prices. If you had been cheaper, then I would assume the quality is too low. And so, we certainly care about trying to get a good deal, but, you do measure people by like, yeah, our developers cost $25 an hour. I'm like, I don't want a $25 an hour developer. So, it's a global market and we're paying in US dollars, which are very decent prices, that you are going to get the premier people, that your business model actually makes sense to me. We're not trying to, you're not being required to do alchemy. Good guys that said, hey, here's what you want to try out, kind of, take this approach with the team, scale them this way, try these things out. They were for my kind of skeptical mindset, they were the perfect people for me to contact.
Interesting. Okay. One question I have for you, Kent, is I'm going to try and phrase it differently, but how aware of you when I remember we first connected, how aware were you of how your developing team was performing below your expectations? Were you like, man, I'm getting tired of my dev team, I'm really hurting on this? Or were you because the crossover team has come alongside, you've now begun to realize where it was in relative to what crossover brought on?
One other thing I want to add about the last question, I just remember your taglines when I went to your website. Everything that you talked about was driven around releasing value, working hard and getting releases done. That was also very instrumental. I'm like, that's the focus that I want. I don't want focus on nickel and diamond or how cheap we are or anything like that. You guys' focus is like, our team will get stuff done at incredible rates, and you have all the infrastructure to prove it. When you demonstrated that, you say, hey, here's how we're tracking everything. We're going to show you these returns. That was really important. That was the thing that I cared about. That's what we lacked. I was very aware, to answer your new question, I was very aware that as promised, when promised doesn't happen. I couldn't get the team over the line. Partly it's to do with bandwidth. There was issues there. We have good guys, and I do trust them. But there's the processes I don't trust. I don't think that I don't think they did or have the right processes in place. And so I don't think that crossover has added anything to me in terms of my awareness of what our team's strengths and weaknesses are. They have filled a void that I was very aware that we needed, but that's part of the reason why I rave about them, is because it's exactly what we needed. It's exactly what I hoped for, and quite frankly, I didn't think it was going to work this well.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Can you talk to me a little bit about WorkSmart and how you interact with it? I don't know if it's something that you look at, or you look at the data, or you trust the SEM to do it, but what are your, how do you relate with WorkSmart as a customer?
Yeah, I mean, Tom and Dan might have different opinions on it. I only show up for the weekly meetings, and they're doing a lot more engagement. Like Dan as the product owner, and Tom obviously as the project manager. But I like that it provides a platform for discussion. But I just don't invest very much in story points. I never have over here. Like whenever we're doing stuff, I want to know the hours that are estimated on projects, and we're hitting those hours. And so this personally at a high level, because I'm like, we don't we have to hit timelines in terms of weeks, not in terms of kind of these ethereal story points. But what it does, and so when they say, hey, we moved up to scoring to doing more points, that is actually neither here nor there. All I care is about hitting these release dates that I know roughly what it would have taken our team to do it, or where we failed to do that in the past. And so I like that it's tracked. I like that they're aware of it. I like that they're reviewing it every week. That is really important to me. But for me personally, I see the results of that tool. And so, but when we're going on the week-to-week basis, it provides a framework. He's like, listen, you'll notice the story points are up. This is because, and he explains it. And the fact that it creates the conversation, that's what's so valuable for me. And I feel that it does surface the right stuff to talk about. But like I said, you could probably get a very different opinion from someone else that is a little bit closer to it.
Okay, got it. Makes sense. One of the things we've heard, Kent, from talking to different customers is that the velocity, because a customer brought on the crossover team, the velocity at which they operate has actually changed their role a little bit. And we usually like to connect with the CEOs to get kind of a higher level view. So and you kind of mentioned this at the very, very beginning, but how, if at all, has the crossover team changed what you do and what you're able to focus on, you personally?
Well, what I get to focus on?
Yeah.
You know what? It's so there's a bunch. So the increased velocity has many, many consequences from me down that I can see already. I'm going to forget some of them as we go through here. For me personally, we never got to strategize. We're an executive team, and we have all these ideas. One thing we're really good on is analytics, self-reflection, creating these strategies. But when you can't release new features, you can't strategize. It's almost like my purpose here is meaningless. Like we're taking the same, we're taking the same tool and we're competing with customers who are competitors who are progressing their programs, and ours is stuck in a rut. So we have to be very clever, but there's nothing revolutionary that we can do. How do you scale a business when you can't actually augment your product? And so the fact that we have a higher velocity and we're releasing these new features means that we actually need to we can now construct plans that utilize roadmaps, product roadmaps. And so how we are attacking the market, our potential to scale is very different. One of the big things that we want to do, and this might be too much detail, but we have a model where we connect with primes, and we have to have all of our subs. They require all their subs to come on board. That means that our sales staff can now engage. We can dedicate some of our senior sales staff to engage in an initiative, which might bring, instead of $6,000 at once over the line, might bring $60,000 over the line at once. Well, that's got a huge impact on our bottom line, but I can't even talk about it if we can't push new features out the door. If the features we're pushing out are broken, and they're missed in QA. So, adding velocity means that you can actually bring value as an executive that you can't without it. It's not that you can't bring value, but you can't scale. You can't do the things that are put on my plate has to do. You run out of tricks in this bag. You're like, we've already taken this product as far as we can go. So.
Makes total sense.
It also has impact all the way down the line. Like one of the things for when I brought Tom on board, who's our project manager, I said, listen, my goal is to get Dave out of meetings. I want him programming. He's our senior programmer. He's spending by my lights 30 to 40% of his time programming. I said, your job, Tom, is to get him there. And yet bringing Tom on didn't do it. Because there was all this, they were trying to engage two main tasks simultaneously. They weren't bringing them over the board. There was, problems that go through, partly because of how they approach problems. They would make them too complex, and then they, again, kind of how I see it, and then they would get stuck in these very complex problems. You bring a high-performing team on board, and now Tom can say, okay, we're doing these ones that need to get out the door. They go on Crossover's table. These ones that are more historical, that need some updates, they go on our team's table. But now they don't have to have as many difficult conversations. And so now our chief architect, the amount of time that he spends actually coding and architecting is way up. So now we get value out of him. We have our guy who's in charge of, he's the COO, and he has a ton of responsibilities. He's a product owner, marketing. He even works with accounts team and quality assurance. He's just got these places everywhere. His time and all of his pressures was stuck up on releases. I said, Tom, your job is to make sure that the releases are not something scary that's taken all of Dan's time where he's trying to validate that we're not going to destroy our customer base with a release. When we bring in Crossover, again, we're releasing them. That's not our experience. The pressure, part of that is Tom. But part of that is Tom being able to push it over to a crossover team that has a certain culture and processes that are geared around releasing and not trying to, like I said, maybe it's unfair to say over engineering, but there's just a very different feeling. And so it's not completely gone, but that's been improved. And so now the guy that I care, that I want worried about product and focusing on our business strategy with me, is now freed up to do that. And he's less stressed. And when he's less stressed, he's more creative. So the marketing stuff that happens is more creative as well.
Got it. That's that cool cascading effect when you get the velocity. What if we move a little bit now to talk about some frustrations or some things that haven't gone well? So when you think about crossover in the team, what are some things that you wish would be improved or wish would be slightly different?
I don't really know because I don't engage with them directly enough. I mean, I think that would be kind of more something that either Dan or Tom could speak to. Okay. But from what I hope to get from the hire, it's been everything that I wanted it to be. So, but they might be able to have particulars that might be helpful, constructive criticism about the process.
Yeah, fair enough, because they're closer with the team.
Yeah.
Pedro or Saunders, anything you guys feel like we should cover that I haven't asked Kent?
Nothing on my end, but maybe Pedro has something.
No, actually not. I was listening and actually I'm glad, but not to ask. Again, I'm so happy that we have been able to help you out. This kind of makes my day, really. It's kind of, we talked about, I'm in the industry quite some times, right? And we talk a lot about features and development technical, but in the end, is to make kind of the customers, your end users happy and help your business grow. So I'm so happy, man, that we could help you out and kind of help SideDocs and all of that. So really, this is kind of, I believe, the most satisfying part of our job. But I do not have any questions to add. No, Graham.
Yeah. Okay.
It's well-earned praise. Like I said, in terms of, I know there's all the dynamics of what everything has to work through the details and everything that you engage our team at, but from decisions at an executive level, it's just been, it's unplugged the big problem set for our company. And if we had this much room we had this much development bandwidth, only this much was getting out to new features. When you add crossover, it's not just that they added, 3 people to our team. They also are just focused on releasing anyhow. They're dedicated to the things that we have them doing. They're excellent at it. They're more efficient at it. And so now we've gone from like this to this. Like I said, it has that cascading effect all the way through. And so from like a high level perspective, we can feel it. We feel it all through the organization. And like I said, the accounts team is coming to me and be like, good decision on crossover. How the heck should they know about crossover? They're like, oh, really good. Like it saved the day. So again, it makes me look good. And it makes my team happier. Lots of volume praise you guys have.
Yeah, like Pedro said, this is the best part of the job, right? And also what's fun is we're just getting started, right? I mean, technically speaking, we're not even that far into our partnership. And so I feel like as you guys grow and give more, there's tons of opportunity to just keep going. So this is our favorite part of what we do.
Excellent. Awesome.
Yeah. Kent, last question before you go. One of the things that has been helpful, if you remember, Saunders may have already talked to you about this, but if down the road, if we run into prospects that are really serious and close to kind of signing on with us, would you be willing to sit down with them occasionally? We'd be cognizant of your schedule and everything, but occasionally talking to some of the high value people that we have on our side that we really want to push over the edge?
Yep, absolutely. I can give you my personal email address as well.
Okay.
So that regardless, you always have access to me that way.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Well, Saunders and Pedro will follow up with you on that. But this has been a great call. It's been super helpful. Also, your insights were really helpful because, again, we're thinking about the future. We're thinking about how to improve. And we could sit here all day and brainstorm and talk about it, but we feel like it's more important to hear from you and from our customers what's actually important to double down on. And this has been really helpful for us.
Yeah. Awesome. Good. I'm glad.
Thank
you for you guys. Really
All right. See you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.